works too. Well, I've got my coffee still, and it's fresh and hot from Starbucks. And I'll be doing that a lot, I'm sure, this morning. We're really excited. This is the first in our new professional studio to start education again on our relationship. And I'm going to move over here and do something we didn't start yet, which is our timer. So I'm going to start our timer so that we have that rolling and we keep on time. So we're still learning the studio technology. We've got lighting. We'll take you through a tour very soon. We've got lighting. We've got 4 cameras. We've got audio. We've got a production, dashboard group working on the other side. Randy, say hi to the audience.
Hello, everybody.
And that's Randy behind the camera. So what am I going to do today? I'm going to educate. That's what I do. I teach, inspire, motivate, and empower you to transform the lives of people that in our field, our profession, our exclusivity, are able to do what most even doctors don't do the same as we do. We make people beautiful inside and out. And at the Hair Loss University, if you've not been a part of us, there's a lot to us. You may want to go to our website and really check it out. Check out some of the people's testimonies and salon owners that have come into the university and grown and blossomed within it. But today, we're going to start a series on education, back to the basics so you can advance. We're also going to have a Q&A. The Q&A will be from your questions. I didn't understand this from the topic every week that we'll be presenting, every week. And that topic then, with your questions, will be advanced in the knowledge. So it's really suiting your needs. So let me just slow it down a minute. We want you to truly understand why we're here. The Hair Loss University, partnered with Wigs for Kids, is here to educate the professional salon stylist who is in hair replacement or looking to get into hair replacement, extensions, trichology, anything that has to do with the growing hair and the added hair that we provide. Today, we're going to go and start the series of what makes up a hairpiece, and then what causes the hairpiece to break down, so that I can roll you into the best design that you then start to select in further sessions that we'll do, and what companies to work with, what hair to select, why to select that type of hair, how to mix hair, color effects built at the factory or built in the center in the dispensary. So we're going to really dig deep. It's going to be new and fresh. Some of it may remind you, for those that have been a member of the Hair Loss Solutions University, but it'll be refresher for you because there's a lot of new things in our industry. We will also have, in our question and answer period of time, because I know the questions are already coming in, where do I get product? How long is it taking to get the manufacturing? Where do I go with, not being able to get a delivery to a client for 6, 9, 12 months? We're going to help you with that. We may not have all the answers, but together we'll find the answers that continue to give us the ability, as a community of hair loss specialists, to be able to provide the transformation impact that we have on people's lives, whether they're trying to prevent hair loss, correct hair loss, or replace hair loss. And today we're going to start out with what makes up a hairpiece. So come over with me to my handy dandy, incredible smart board. It's smarter than me.
Could you say that again?
And my smartphone. My smartphone was talking to us. But in turn, this is an incredible board that we invested in so that we could educate you even more. So you'll see me using it a lot in our education. But let's start out with the series of what makes up a hairpiece construction and base and hand tied and hair and everything that goes into, whether it's extensions, whether it's a top of the head, whether it's a half head, whether it's a 3/4 head, whether it's a full head. The materials and the tying and all of the elements are going to be very, very similar, but you're going to see some nuances that are going to give you like aha moment to say, that's what I want for Kathy, or that's what I wish I did for Bill because he keeps losing his hair in his front hairline, so that we can help you design a better product to make a better look on the people that we serve each and every day. So let's go into this. Let's start first with the materials. There are two categories of materials in the industry. It doesn't matter what factory you're working with. It doesn't matter what individual company you broker through. The reality, even if it was pre-custom or custom or stock, the materials are still very, very much within the same alignment. Problem one, they call it a lot of different things. And instead of calling it what it is in the real world, it makes it a little more challenging. Because if I call mono a product and I call another product nylon, you'd assume it's different. But in turn, I'm going to give you the basics, and then you will be advanced as we go along on how to call it out for the factories that you work with, and we'll give you some glossaries to be able to understand their language. It's not a lot, but it's just like the colorings. The coloring should be 1 through whatever. And the JL coloring, which is the international coloring, which has 500 rings of color on it, is what every company uses to reduce down into their color selection. Some have 40 colors, some have 30 colors, some have 12 colors, but they call it honeydew. They call it 1B XYZ ash, and it confuses a lot of people instead of using the unified information. But that's the industry we're in on the other side of our practices. And we're going to unfold that for you so that you can continue to know how to work with any factory and never be necessarily locked into one, because what if one closes up, as we have seen during the pandemic? What if one jumps the prices up 30% overnight? What do? We want you to be capable to pivot and be able to really understand how to run your practice. Remember, we got 4 pillars. It's technical, which we're going to be talking about now, consultation, there's business, and there's marketing. Today, let's talk about the design factors. So there are 2 major categories, fabric and polymers, okay? Fabric and polymers. They break down into monofilament, silk, French lace, and nylon. Now, there are samples of these from almost all the factories that you can utilize, and there's 3-ring notebooks of materials that you can get in regards to looking at. In fact, let me show you our handy dandy overhead projector over here. You can see that this is a material guide that has everything from the polymers, the density charts, the highlight distribution, the curl pattern. So you can go and should have that type of base material so that you can learn it. Once you learn it and you create what I will be teaching you as well, when you create your own design, it can be a duplicate of what we've helped you learn how to create an integration system, a top of the head, a full head. But once you do that, then the materials are almost on autopilot. And here's your first tip of the day. The biggest tip that I can give you is create a selection of designs that you will continue to repeat, that will work for 80% of your clients. If it's a man, let's say you have a lace and you have a polymer. If you have a woman, you have integration or duplication. If you have a full head, you've got the relationship of utilization of tape-on and then silicone base, so that you have the ability of continually repeating the design. It's going to help your factory, get you less problems in custom goods. You'd be able to find pre-custom goods that match up if you can't get something and you need something very quickly, but you want to set that up. That's where we're going with regards to the relationship of where we're at in the university. And what I'm going to do every week is to continue to help grow you into a business that runs and operates custom, pre-custom, profitable, and always caring and compassionate for the people that we transform. So back to the materials. Okay, the materials of bases are made up of these fabrics. Then there are the polymers, which is polyurethane, nicknamed poly. Oh, I just got that mark there. And silicone, and then copolymer, where they put copolymer because silicone doesn't stick to anything. Polyurethane is a great product to have things stick to, but both of them have properties that are beneficial. But when they need to stick something on the head, they have a copolymer so that the copolymer, the polyurethane, is on the lower level where you put some tape, and the silicone is on the top so they can maybe do an injection or a loop mold. So it builds the ability of taking the two products of polymers into one to benefit for its purpose. It's not just to throw up in the air and guess. I will give you that who is best suitable in the consultation segment we'll do later on in the month in relationship. Why do I pick this type of design and these materials in that design for this particular case profile? That means your client that you're seeing and their hair loss situation that is unique to them. Okay, number two, we're going to come over here to go to B, placement of knotting, the knotting placement. If you have any of these materials, you would blow it up and you would see that whether it's mono, silk, French, or nylon, it's made up of, like our clothing, just like our fabric of our clothing, it's made up of lines in either a square or a hexagon or different shapes, but typically most of them are in the square. And the only place that they can tie a hair to it, now listen to this because it's going to roll into an important message for you in just a little bit. The only way that they can tie it is on the cross member, right where it crosses over, where the vertical and the horizontal come together. They cannot, let me do this, they can't tie it here because if they tie it here, it'll slide back and forth on the nylon or on anything that we're working with. So in turn, it has to be there. If in fact you're a quality level center, you're asking for a density that is making sense to your client, so it's not a lot of density. You're using 1 to 2 hairs per knot, and that's what you request. When somebody says, I want heavier density, they don't have any more places to put it on there. So the highest density, let's call it medium density, is 1 to 2 knots per cross section. So when you ask for medium heavy, they put 2, 3, 4 hairs per knot. Let me tell you what happens to that. Or if you go to heavy, you might have a gumball, which is, 6 hairs per knot, per tie. And the reality to that is that the bigger the knot is, the easier the hair can come out. People think I just put them a little more density and it'll last longer. Not true. I'm going to do this. Over to camera 1. Not true. That doesn't work. In fact, it makes it fall out sooner. Okay? So in turn, back to camera 2. How do you like that? I just did a little shift. I have a little foot pedal and I can actually shift the 2 cameras. So we got a little effect there for you, okay? But in turn, 1 to 2 is what you want. So now all of a sudden, you're starting maybe to see the material and the density, because of the placement of manufacturing of hand-tied goods, represent where maybe some of your problems are coming out. It's too thin, it's too heavy, it's too light, whatever it might be. And this is just the basics right now. This is just the beginning steps. We're gonna continue to unpack this so that you really are educated on design and order processing and manufacturing and all the things that are necessary to deliver the best product with the least, here we go again, with the least amount of problems, for you and the least frustration for your client. Nothing worse than having a client say, it's too thin, I can see the knots. Or the knots are too big, I see knots, I don't want to see knots. Or the hair's coming out too fast, why is it coming out? You don't want that at that point. So in turn, with regards to what we're doing today is we're just giving you the basics, getting you revved up, and starting again with the Hair Loss University to be able to build our community to be an educated, compassionate, professional, profitable community that absolutely is changing people's lives and changing their worlds because of what you're making them come into by the transformation of the beauty from within as well as outside. So with the knotting, you understand when we take the hair in any of the fabrics, this is what you have. But in any of the polymers, there are 2 things. If there is a nylon in between the polymer, they can do this. If it is not, then they have to do a loop knot. So let's talk about knotting, okay? Let's come over here to the knotting system. In a relationship of, let me see what color I have here. in the relationship of a split knot. The split knot is generally for the lace front hairline. Much more fragile knot. The way that they do it is they pull 2 hairs through and then they pull 1 through the knot. The other one is free. So it's very, very flimsy and flexible for the frontal hairline. You surely wouldn't want that in the top because it would be a vacancy of hair, but at the same time, it wouldn't give any body and volume or coverage. It's for that soft hairline at that point. The single knot is where they're tying the knot in a normal knot, like you tie a knot. Tie a shoe and you got a knot. That's a knot, okay? And then when you come to kids' shoes, you do a double knot. You know how you do that? I do that with my granddaughters. A double knot. The double knot is there because it's secured. We have found that we've needed to go, because of the manufacturing issues that we'll be talking about, what's happening overseas. I'm going to take you behind the scenes to educate you on what's really going on. Why are they delayed? Why are the materials a problem to source? Why is the price accelerating by 20, 30, 50% of what it was a year and a half ago? But the real, not just the fantasy or the frustration, the real thing, so that you can plan ahead of how you're going to continue to be profitable and continue to make an impact on your clients in regards to your professional business and handling it in a professional way. So the double knot is there. So we'll use a split knot in a lace front. We'll educate you more on that. The single knot can be done behind the split knot as you're transitioning into the double knot. Do you need to know all these things? You need to know them because most of the times when you just check the box off that says medium light density, you don't know what's going on. But if you are looking for that perfection of, never perfection in our business, but a better look, the best look you can get, knowing a little bit about this, you can request it very simply, and then you put it into a profile of your particular designs, and you continue to check it off. And as we do, we simply send one diagram with the order form, and we have an order, and of course, a mold. So it makes it easier once you've learned this. But you know, when we went to do algebra, do you remember that? It probably gives a lot of you goosebumps. When we went to do algebra, how many of you, raise your hands, really were good at algebra? Okay, half of you are lying if you raise your hands, but if you were, that's great. I know it was a wrestling match for me. But then when I went into geometry and trichology, what was that? Not trichology, because we're doing trichology, but what was the other? Trigonometry. Thank you, Randy. Trigonometry, I mean, it was more and more advanced. Well, you didn't start there. You came back to plus and minus, then multiplication and division. Then you went to algebra with formulas, and then you went to the other ones. Or you just plateaued at that point. Same with hair replacement. Don't take this just because you haven't had the education, or you've had the education and it wasn't truly the foundations of real education that is necessary for you to grow from. You want to have the ability to truly understand the current knowledge of what's happening. Just like learning about hair that we're going to talk about in the series coming up, is there's synthetic and there's high heat fibers. There's Chinese hair. In fact, let me do this. We'll come into the overhead. So you've got two types of synthetics that are out there right now. You've got the Chinese hair that is out there. You've got the Russian hair that is absolutely, if found, very difficult to get. There's the high premium Indian hair. So knowing all that, which one do you want? Well, again, back to consultation. When I take you through the master course of consultation, the reality is this, that this is going to be the ability for you to really understand how to design for that client. Because if you have a client with very thin hair, and she says, I want it to blend into my hair, and you get Chinese hair, which is a diameter, 20 to 30% bigger diameter per hair, it's going to lay on her head like a wig. And that one simple decision of design will give you a better finished product when you make that transformation in the mirror and turn her around. And her words should be, or his words should be, it looks just like me. Or it looks like I always wanted to look like. But again, putting the pieces together will take a little bit of education. That's why we're doing this for you. That is why we want our community to be the smartest community, so that they go through the learning grind and the learning curve and become the experts in what you do. And even if you're an expert already, to become even more of an expert. You know, I've been doing this for almost 40 some years in the hair replacement exclusively, designing for manufacturers, designing lines for manufacturers, creating workshops, training programs, and expositions to be able to give the ability for professionals to truly understand this. And on the other side, as an author and a private practice owner, I am educating the consumer in our Hair Loss Solutions TV. If you haven't seen it, we'll put it down below so that you can click on it and watch every week that we educate the consumer about what we're talking about. Why should they get Indian hair? Why should they get European hair? What's the difference between that? What's the difference in synthetic? And what are the price bracketings of all those selections? Does it make sense? So if it makes sense to you, in the comments, would you put, it makes sense? Or if it doesn't make sense, put in there, I want to hear both sides of the coin. It doesn't make sense to me, Jeff. And I will then take that into our question and answer and break it down. Today's just an overview. So don't try to, burn out or overwhelm yourself. It's just an overview. But let's go back, review, and move forward. We talked about the base materials. And the base materials that we've talked about two categories, fabric and polymer. Keep it that simple. Then we talked about where on the materials they are able to place knotting and what creates a light density, medium density, heavy density. Then we went into the type of knotting. We went up to this point of double knotting. We split knot in lace front. Single knot is a transition knot. Double knot is a secure knot. Then there's a V-loop, which means they pierce the hair through and pull it out. This is not done on fabric. It's only done on polymers. But it makes it disappear. I mean, the knot is coming out of the top of the head. Then there's direct injection. Direct injection, like the Cesaragazzis and the CNCs, where they're piercing it right into the material and sealing it on the other side so it is physically looking like it's growing out of the top of the head and has the full flexibility of 360 degrees. So these are the knots, but you can see the brackets of where they fall into. Going forward, we come over here with hair. This is a big one. This is a big one. When somebody says, I want 12 inches of hair, and you price it at 12 inches of hair, but when you go to the factory and they price you and you say, wow, especially now, why is it so much more expensive? Understand that the 12 inches of hair that the client wants in her length is not the full length of the working hair. Because, and I'll teach you that in a minute, we need to have the return. That means when they're doing the tie, they have a short and a long. If you cheat and you do 1 inch or 2 inches, you have the porcupines or what looks like broken ends and it looks awful, especially the longer the hair. So we've actually gone to 6 inches in some when people want that long one length. 6 inches of return. So they're buried way down in there and they don't have that tendency to porcupine out. So what happens is the people don't understand you're really being priced out for 16 inches of hair if you're working with a 12-inch finish. Your factory may not tell you that, but when you put the 12-inch order in, that's what you're ordering. So by translating that to your customer and getting them to understand what it takes, and that's why we're doing the Hair Loss Hair Loss Solutions TV, we're educating the consumer to realize why the price of hair and what the price of hair means so that you obviously have something to refer to. So if a client says, why do I need all this length of hair? And with our Wigs for Kids organization, everybody knows that we have minimum of 12 inches because we don't make hair pieces 6 inches or 8 inches long. We do 14 inches. So what's the length we need? We need 14 plus 4 inches. We need 18 inches of hair to give a little girl a beautiful long head of hair that she wants, desires, and wants to look herself and live her life in. So understand This is what's happening below the surface. But if you're educated in that, when your consultation comes up, you'll be able to educate the consumer way more than you can imagine. Excuse me for a coffee break. We'll take a commercial. I always said, Randy, I want to get Starbucks to be our sponsor. Again, here's an example to give you. Maybe I'll show it to you this way again, back there overhead. How's that, Randy? You can see that the black is obviously the return, and the red is the length. So in turn, when you've got a head of hair that you have all of these hairs coming from the hairpiece, wig, extension, integration system, whatever it might be, you have all of this with returns. We'll be talking about reconditioning hairpieces soon. I got a formula that I'm not going to even tell you where I got it because it was a secret that I received it and I was not supposed to get it because it's one of the most magical products in your center that you can transition hair, cuticle that's been open, tangles that have been aggressively knotted, and be able to support that hair in a way that you've never seen before. And it comes out of over 50 years ago, a formula that they used that I went back into the archives of the best of hair workers and hair makers and wig makers and found this formula that I'll be sharing with the Hair Loss Solutions membership that will be able to utilize it in your center. And the cost of it to the clients can go anywhere from $125 to $225 in regards to doing this treatment process over the process of a hairpiece life expectancy, making it shiny and beautiful again. Just a sidebar. Okay, so now knowing that there is 12 inches and 4-inch return, look at what happens. This is what happens in the long run of the hair loss. And I just did a Hair Loss Solutions TV program. Randy, let's put that in the link down below. We'll let them link to the Hair Loss Solution TV on why do hair pieces lose hair. Because I explained it to the consumer so they're not coming in to see you and saying to you, why I've been wearing this for 3 months, it was beautiful, and now look at it, it's a mess. And they want you or the manufacturers to be responsible. We are going to talk a lot about that. But we did an educational awareness to our consumer market, and you can play that on your Facebook, you can play that on your YouTube, you can play that on your website, or you can show it in your consultation to be able to give people the awareness. Why does a hairpiece have big holes in it and missing hair in a specific area like alopecia of the hairpiece? We went through all that to help educate because we also get the same thing with our clients that are coming in and wanting us to be the responsible professional. And they expect us 3 months, 6 months into the wearing it, even the extended wear, to be able to repair it for them for nothing. You can't stay in business that way, but you can't argue with them. You have to educate them. Educate them, educate them. When do you stop educating them? Never, never, never. Oh, let's do this. Never stop educating your clients and never stop educating you. The greatest minds of all, the greatest inventors of all, the people who have been the most successful, the athletes, you name it, are always people that are always a living student of their craft, of their abilities. They're always learning, always learning, always learning, and always teaching. Always learning and always teaching. So you're learning and you're passing it off in a knowledgeable, palatable way that your client can understand. That's what we're going to help you with too. That's part of the consultation pillar that we work with. Helping you give the client the ability to understand why is my hair loss there and what do I need to do to prevent that. That means retail sales. That means hair scalp treatments. That means a lot of different things. It means it might be a satin pillowcase. It might be a lot of things that we help educate the client, the consumer, and work through the process of being a better consumer for us, a better client of ours. And we just then rise to the top to be the best hair replacement specialist, an expert, and life-changing person for them. So back to camera 2. Okay. Thanks for excusing us to play with our toys that we have now because we just started playing with this. Like I said, this is the first one. So in this, I want you to take a look at what happens. Here's the tie. Remember I said you might have a split knot, a single knot, a double knot. but it's knotted. Here is your return. We said it's what, 4 inches, and let's assume that we're doing a 12-inch length, and it's tied. Double knot's going to give you a lot more life expectancy. It's going to give a lot more strength to it. It's a little bit bigger, but it won't hurt, especially if it's a medium light density to a medium density. But now what happens is that the time goes on, and if it's a single hair knot, it happens faster. If it's a double knot, it happens in a longer period of time. But as they brush, especially when you're brushing it when it's wet, especially when they're brushing it when it's tangly and they're pulling on it, they're pulling that knot. They're pulling on that knot, and what's happening, just like a shoelace, it eventually comes undone. Picture that for a moment. Just picture that for a moment. And the reality then is you have hair loss. So in this case, you have hair loss because over time, what's the time period of this? Well, ideally, it's in a 9-month window, 9 to 12 months, and it's generally in the population area of the friction point, we call it, the part or the break or the hairline, the area that takes the most brushing. And as they're doing that, especially when it's wet, and especially if they're not using the right brush, and especially if it's coming out of the shower and not been worked through and blotted dry with a towel, chamois towel, and all the things that we'll continue to teach you about for the consumer education, then it's going to come out sooner. But roll that back. If you educate the client of what's happening before they walk out the door, after they bought the hair system from you, and you educate them on this, and then you have the right brush, you have the right products, you have the right training program for them, you have a video backup of training that program for them, you have the right implementation and checkup, you will find that this will be very successful. But if this happens in 2 months or 3 months, you have an irate client, right? If you've had an irate client in the last 24 months, put in yes with an exclamation point, will you? Yes with an exclamation point. Let me get serious, real serious. I'm always serious, but I'm not serious because I love what I do and I enjoy what I do. But I just got off an interview with Dr. Alan Bauman. Many of you know him if you're in the hair replacement specialist. He's the best in the world of what he does. He's recognized not just by me, but he's recognized by the international and the national in the United States and North and South America, memberships that they're involved with, the different organizations. And they've recognized him over and over as one of the best. We talked after my interview with him on the COVID hair loss just recently on our Hair Loss Solutions TV. And it was amazing. And that's down below. If you're watching Facebook or our YouTube channel right now, it's down below. You can see all 5 of our series. What to do about COVID at home. Great for you to use for your clients. What to do COVID with trichology. What to do with COVID in relationship of hair replacement. What to do with COVID hair loss from the medical procedures. So that's there. But when we're done, I said, hey, Alan, let me ask you a question. Have you noticed your clients and your staff are at edge 24/7? Have you noticed they've been less pliable, less reasonable? And he absolutely not only agreed, but educated me that he works in the ability to take care of helping veterans, and part of his benevolence of working with people other than hair transplants and other things that he does in the medical community. But he related that the mental stress, the mental issues of after COVID has been extreme, but not just the veterans that he's working with, because that's who he works with, but all clients, his transplant clients. We went over and over on the psychological impacts that we are dealing with. Well, we, the professionals, have to learn how to deal with that now. It's not the same old way of dealing with the client. It's not any longer your grandmother's hairpiece, and it's no longer the way that we treated and worked with psychology of just make them happy and make them smile, make them look beautiful. Because there's so many different elements, and behind the scenes, so many of their own issues that they're dealing with, and a lot of the psychological impact that has happened because of closed down and all the other issues. So understand that's what we're here about. So let me wrap this up today. You've learned a little bit. You've only learned a pinch. I just wanted to give you a sprinkle, and I'll break each one of these down. I'll show you the materials. I'll show you the differences. But I want you to know, I just learned today, do you know what the original wigs were made out of, the base material? Goat skin. Goat skin. They would take goat skin and they would hand tie hair to it. And that was the first wigs. A little, tidbit of trivia. But in turn, I will take you through these and show you more, and we'll get some videos from the factory. We'll get some hands-on, we'll do some hands-on stuff right here. We've got our overhead projector. We have set this up for education, education, education. Because if you know my mission statement, if you haven't heard this already, it's time, T-I-M-E. I'm going to teach you, inspire you, motivate, empower you to transform lives and to be transformed, to fall back in love with what we do. We do a mighty, empowering act of service, and we need to enjoy that. We can't be under the stresses and strain. That's why the psychology is that I shared with you. I will be bringing on a #1 psychologist in the country that has written in my books, both for the consumer book and the professional book, and we're going to have a dialogue together in regards to how to deal with a, overwhelmed, overstressed, out of control, female or male, so that you can better know how to bring them down, bring them to a peace, give them what you are servicing them with, and make their life better because of you. And that visit will be something they can't wait to get back to. So here's your job now. We've given you a lot of information. Please give us a review in the comments right where you're at. What do you think of what we've shared with you so far? What do you not understand? What do you understand? What's your questions? That's more important. But if you're going to ask a question, put a Q, a capital Q dash, so we can draw those out immediately to get ready for our next Hair IQ to be able to answer those questions. And I will answer them. If I don't have the answers, I will go do the research with my team to find the answers for you. Or that you need the resources. We will find the resources, or in our resource guide in our website, and for our members, you will find an incredible amount of resources and are always being updated and will always will continue to be updated ever since we started the beginning of the Jeffrey Paul Academy into the Jeffrey Paul Hair Loss Solutions TV, and now the renewed Hair Loss Solutions University. We want you to be educated and the best of the best. But the best of the best is always what I say. I'm testing you now. Always learning, always teaching. Always learning, always teaching. I'll say hello to each and every one of you, especially my Platinum team members and coaches. We're back in the game to help educate, even though for 24 months we were dark. Why? Because we were taking care of business and taking care of business in a very unusual season, but we're back. We're now ready not to go back to the old season. We're ready to invent, renew a new season with you. So until I see you next week, remember this: beauty and change begins within. See you then.